I'm super excited to talk to you, Lila, about Google. In 2017, you spent more than 50 hours interviewing for your current role, 50 hours, wow, as Chief Operating Officer at Google DeepMind, in part because Google wanted to make sure you were right for the role, and I'm sure you wanted to make sure Google was right for you. So why did you ultimately choose to join Google and this team?
At the end of the day, I decided if I can bring all of my 30 years of tech experience of making sure that technology happened to benefit people, if I could bring that into the field of AI as the first Chief Operating Officer at Google DeepMind, then that would be a meaningful career and legacy to leave behind. So I joined because I felt candidly that it was like a moral calling, that if I could help make sure that AI got developed responsibly and with humanity in mind.
Can you tell me what your childhood was like growing up in Indiana?
Yes.
As a first-generation immigrant?
I did grow up as a first-generation Arab American. My mother came from Jerusalem and my father is Lebanese. And they came both to the United States for their education, and they met in Pennsylvania. And eventually we're going to move to the West Coast, and then happened to stop in Indiana. And at the time, I was just 2 years old, but my sister had just been born, and she has cerebral palsy. So we ended up making Indiana our home because my parents were able to get my sister into a school there. And so I ended up growing up there. Dark hair, curly, dark skin, totally stood out. I didn't even know what a pie was, apple pie, when our neighbors brought it over. Growing up in Indiana was a pretty special place. You get the work ethic of the Midwest, and first job as a corn detasseler, I was set.
What did having a sister with cerebral palsy teach you about navigating life and fighting for what is yours, even if you are different maybe than the other kids?
Yeah, my sister was just 1 year younger than me, so we grew up very close. And as the eldest, I always thought that I had the toughest job, but you can't really complain when you see what your own sibling has to go through. And you know, people will see a wheelchair and then make assumptions, not questioning what she could really do. And she ended up graduating second in the high school class, going to prom and really adjusting. So I think in many ways what Indiana gave us was learning how to be part of a community. And my parents taught us from a young age of really being proud of our background. We learned to embrace it as part of our own identity, that we didn't have to be like everyone else to be able to fit in.
How has your background influenced the way you've approached your work?
I think so much of it comes with just being willing to take on risks and seeing opportunity in things that other people might be concerned about. While my background is as an engineer and in technology, there's a through line of how does technology really help with connecting people and enabling social progress.
According to Forbes, just 11% of tech executives are women. You've been able to forge your own path, Lila, and I'm curious what the challenges were that you faced as a young woman in this field.
Starting off in electrical engineering, of one of the very few women in the field, to joining Intel in a semiconductor industry. I was always young and I was always a woman, and there was no hiding either one of those. And what I found was along the way just finding people who would be willing to give me a chance. I got very fortunate in having a lot of really strong sponsors throughout my career. They opened the door and let me walk through it. They appreciated that I brought a different way of doing things. And so a lot of times I would be the person that would take on the challenges that no one else would take because I saw the opportunity.
You have had some incredible breakthroughs at Google DeepMind. One in particular is called AlphaFold. What is that?
AlphaFold is an advanced AI system that predicts the 3D structure of a protein. A protein is the basic building block of life. So if you can predict how it folds, you can understand its function. But if it misfolds, you can also understand what went wrong. And that can be helpful, for example, to understand diseases, of what's maybe causing a disease. So Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, those are examples of a protein-based disease. So we developed an AI system to say, what if we could use AI to help us find patterns and uncover the prediction path for proteins? And that's what we did. It now has opened up the field for scientists to make great advancements and the work that they're doing on top of it. So instead of spending the 4 years on understanding a single protein, they're working on things like how to fight industrial waste, how to better understand diseases, how to maybe unlock the areas of plant science for food security.
Tell me about some of the breakthroughs you've been able to maneuver thanks to AlphaFold.
We've provided a database of 200 million proteins that you can go on just like a Google map search. There's a university in the UK working on plastic-eating enzymes to try to deal with industrial waste. There's also work happening on crop and food security as well.
So is AlphaFold a direct outcome of artificial intelligence?
Yes, AlphaFold is a great example of using AI, artificial intelligence, for scientific discovery. And we like to think of it as like, how can you use AI to enable science at digital speed?
How have you also incorporated a diversity of cultural backgrounds and outlooks?
We put a lot of effort in the space of ethics research and foresight. So we had developed some work around large language models, and we actually held off on releasing our technical paper until we released an ethics paper on talking about risk and opportunity. By having a diverse perspectives in there, we were able to think about what the risks and the opportunities are from different perspectives. And what's important is you can't add responsibility on as a bolt-on. It has to be built in from the start. And so by bringing that diversity within the teams, it helps us to ensure that we're being responsible stewards of this technology.
I know that you're passionate about education and AI. Can you tell us what excites you the most about the impact this technology could have?
Well, I think there's always been this question about personalized learning. Can we, everyone learns very differently. I often think of like what it could have meant for my sister to have had an assistive technology. And I look at my own children and they have very different learning models.
Even though they're twins.
Yes. Same house, they grew up. So I joke that it's my own A/B test. And one is a very traditional learner. My other daughter is neurodiverse, and seeing how she now uses technology as an enabler to gain her confidence. And it's not asking her to change the way she learns, but rather the technology meets her with where she is at. So one of the things we've done at Google is something called Learn LM, which is taking some of the foundational AI models and improving them for education and learning so that we can have something that's like almost a personalized tutor. Like if you think about it, imagine if every student can have a personalized tutor, and that doesn't take away from a teacher. Right? Like we still need teachers. Now imagine every teacher could have a teaching assistant. How would that change a classroom environment where people can be curious about what they're learning and not be afraid that they have to take a different path than maybe what they're comfortable with?
This technology is happening so quickly. Maybe not to you, Lila, but to the layperson, it just seems like it's evolving so fast. And I think a lot of people are suspicious of new technology. Why should people trust DeepMind?
If you think of, like mom has a stomach ache, what do? I go to Google and I do a search. That trusted source of information, I think we take our responsibility very seriously. And so that means that we hold ourselves to a different level, I think, of accountability. And I think it shows in the track record of work that we've done, of the technological work alongside the ethics research, to make sure that we are trying to set a quality standard for ourselves and do it in partnership with stakeholders outside of our organization as well. And I'm proud of the fact that we hold ourselves accountable to it.
What is one piece of advice, Lila, you might give to business leaders about preparing for the future of AI?
What I always tell people is now is the chance to learn. We're never going to have as much time as we do now. So how do you start upskilling yourself? How do you think about the culture of responsibility that you want to build at work around AI? in your home around the use of AI. I think these are important conversations to be having and important investments to be making now.
Talk about cutting edge. You must really love your job.
I feel like I'm exactly at the right job and at the right time.
Never a dull moment.
I think transformational technology requires exceptional care, and AI requires that. But I think this is, what I hope that we can do is imagine a future where we can find solutions to some of society's biggest challenges. If we can use AI as a tool with humanity to make us more human in our approach and what we're leaving the world behind for my kids and their generation, then I think that would be pretty spectacular.
And scene. That was awesome. That was great.